Another ghost of Agile past is Burndown charts. You know, I always had a problem with Burndown charts. There was just something niggling at me that there was something wrong with them. Everybody seemed to talk like they were the holy grail of monitoring a team. But when you start thinking about just-in-time planning, just-in-time planning doesn't just extend to the product backlog, it also extends to the sprint backlog. And if we do just-in-time planning, how could you possibly have a burn down that reflects the team, the work that the team's working on? Think about it. The way a burn down works is it goes from top left to bottom right. It goes from a list of all the stuff that we need to deliver, burns down towards that trajectory of we've delivered all the stuff in it. In order to do that, we have to understand all the stuff that's going to come into the sprint backlog at the start. This is why you see lots of teams and organizations fixated on that. Once you've brought things into the sprint backlog, you can't change the scope crap, right? The idea that you can't, that if you're going to remove something from the sprint backlog, you have to bring in something of equal size, and all of that stuff that is really just smacks of traditional project thinking, right? We've got scope, we want to maintain that scope, we want to control that scope, so we're going to have this burn down that we want to be on this line of that. And it's just a crap. The worst way to do burn downs is if you are burning down hours on tasks. That's probably the worst form, because it implies that we've built all of the tasks with all of the hours at the beginning of the sprint. And I don't mean all, right? There's at least one person out there is sitting there thinking, but Martin, we don't plan all of this stuff, but maybe we get 90% of the way there. I'm saying 90% is crap. I'm saying 70% is crap. I'm saying 50% is probably crap, right? We discover more by doing than we could by thinking up front. That's the fundamental context within which Agile sits. And anybody that thinks that they can build products that don't exist yet and have a higher than 50% probability of the things you bring in being the things you need is, I don't know what they're smoking, but it would be great to get some of that stuff, because it's just not how the world works. When we have that high degree of probability that things will be different, low predictability in what we think's going to happen and what actually happens, we need a different way to manage the work. We need to manage the work empirically. And in any empirical process, which Scrum is founded on empiricism, most of Agile is founded upon empiricism. In any empirical process, you're not going to know what it's going to take to do something. That's the first part. So if we're thinking we can create a whole big list of hours at the start and then burn down and see that we're on that trajectory, that's not going to happen. So a solution for that many teams have tried, or many teams that I've seen have tried, is to do burn down in story points. So instead of burning down the hours, they burn down the story points, so it's slightly less granular, or go even more less granular and burn down in stories, right? So you've got that more jagged line rather than a smooth line. But and that's a little bit better. At least if we're 50% way through the sprint and we're 50% delivered value, that's probably the best that the burn down is going to get, right? In that world where we've brought 10 things into the sprint and we're going to deliver 10 things, if we're halfway through the sprint and we've delivered 5 of them, things are going good. If we're halfway through the sprint and we've delivered 3 of them, things are not going good, right? That's probably, there's a lot of assumptions in there, that things are of similar size. There's all kinds of assumptions in there, but that's probably the best of that world. But the reality is that all of those are predicated on the idea that you've decided what that thing is up front. You've decided how many of those things you're going to bring in up front. And whether it's hours or story points or stories, that's not how it works. Most teams have a higher degree of volatility. They're not just thinking about the value that they're delivering in the sprint, their sprint goal. They're also thinking about how much technical debt do we have to pay off? How much refactoring do we maybe have to do as we're building this product? They're thinking about those little bugs that keep that steady stream of small, inconsequential but valuable defects that keep coming through the system. You don't want them building up, so you've got to take some of them on. Responding to the business. The business needs something and be able to respond to it, or production issues, or there's too many ors. The reality is you are much better focusing on the flow of value through your system and maintaining a steady, consistent flow as much as you can within the bounds of the work that you're doing, than on trying to meet some arbitrary top left to bottom right graph burn down. That's just ridiculous, and it is one of the ghosts of Agile past. If you are being haunted by these ghosts of Agile past, we can help you exorcise them, or find a coach, consultant, or trainer who can. Don't let these phantoms undermine the effectiveness of your value delivery. The longer they linger, the more they'll haunt your team's progress. Send me an email to martin@nkdagility.com and we will help you get to the bottom of it. If you want to have a discussion about your unique needs or situation, then please book a call or visit us at NKDAgility.com. We also have our immersive and traditional public classes on our website, and we'd love to hear from you.